Greetings, everyone. First of all, please judge me favorably. I'm guessing that a lot of people have logged on and given up because we're 40 minutes late. But I want you to please judge me favorably. I don't want to get into the details because I don't want to create any panic. Whatever. I and my family we have complications that, in our lives, like everyone does, that arose because of the coronavirus. And these complications have, been the cause of the delay. Thank God we are all healthy and all doing well. But I'm sure you know from your own lives, you know, this, this virus has created complications. And that is why I'm 40 minutes late. Circumstances beyond my control. Please judge me favorably. And of course, I nonetheless, even though circumstances beyond my control, I nonetheless apologize for any inconvenience, even though it's beyond my control. But sorry, sorry it happened to you. If anyone's really waiting around for the last 40 minutes. It's good if you subscribe to this channel. You could log on, log off, and you'll get a notification when it goes live, when it really goes live. That's a big advantage. Since we spoke about the coronavirus, I do want to share with you two things. Just because Dover Bito Matov, the pasuk says, something at its proper time is the best. No better time than the present to share with you two ideas, and the second of the two actually leads directly into the principle we want to lay down in today's installment. So, number one, as we spoke many times, when we have addressed coronavirus, the panic is the worst thing, right? Because panic, first of all, ruins your health, and also metaphysically, it ruins your mazel. It makes your luck, lack of a better word, worse. Right? Because, and you understand where the justice is in that, because it shows a lack of faith, right? And as we've said many times, and Purim taught us this message, is that there's no contradiction between doing your due diligence and having perfect faith. The two are not a contradiction, because God wants you to do whatever you can do. That's what He wants from us. But just because you have to do and try doesn't mean therefore you lose your faith. Trying doesn't mean and therefore it's not in the hands of God. No, everything's in the hands of God, and He commanded you to try because He wants to make you a partner in your upkeep and your maintenance. Okay, so the fear and the panic just makes everything so much worse, and then I was reminded of a medrash that the Hachsharat Brechen, which is written by Rav Klein, common of P.S. Setzna, right? He who wrote the Chovos HaTalmidim. He brings this medrash in that book, Hachsharat Brechen, that there was a guy with no arms and no legs, right? A totally useless invalid, God forbid, lo aleinu. Guy had to make a living, right? So he put arranged to have his armless and legless stump, dumped at a crossroads with the big stick leaning against his shoulder. And whenever people came by at the crossroads, said, "Listen, give me your money. I was going to hit you with my stick. Yeah, I got this big stick here." Right? Man, he's got a big stick. So people, all the fraidy cats gave him their money. Right? People just like, they were shocked, shocked into it. The aggressive request with the stick, So one wise man actually took stock of the situation and took the stick and hit the armless, legless man with it. Yeah, right. And he says, the metric says, this is the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara, his bark. To say his bark is worse than his bite is doesn't do justice. He only has a bark. He only has a bark. That's all he is. Right? We panic, and our panic is what gives him his. It's our panic and our being scared of him. Oh my God, I'm feeling a taiva. Oh my God, I'm feeling tempted. You know, that's what gives him his power. With this, you can understand. Why. In the future, evil people that always gave in to their Yetzirah see him just as a thread. They said, we couldn't overcome this lousy thread. Amazing. Now, why did tzaddikim who did overcome see him as a mountain is something else, separate discussion. But the Rishayim, that he's too strong, too strong. They see him in the future as a thread. So we couldn't overcome this lousy little thread. That's it. He only has a bark. He doesn't have a bite. In that way, we know Amalek, which is the nation of Yetzirah, is compared to a dog. And not my golden retriever, of course. My golden retriever is a tzaddik. Okay, I'll give another discussion as to why these domesticated dogs that we've been intentionally selectively breeding over the years may not have all the characteristics of the dog that Chazal spoke about so negatively. Basically because of selective inbreeding and domestication. So we kind of changed and tamed their nature. But let's get off that. Right. And I hope everyone's excusing me, these digressions and a little bit of humor. We all have to keep ourselves happy and occupied during this time where we're going stir crazy, being locked indoors. So, anyways, but Amalek is not even as good as a real dog. A real dog does bite. Amalek only has bark. Right, so he's only alluded to by the dog as far as the bark, not as far as the bite. Really, really. His main power is in his bark. You get afraid of him, so that's what gives him the power and the confidence to bite you. Also, that comes from your fear. Right, so that's so we have to. So it's just so we have to learn from what Hashem's doing to us, and there's no question that what's off the scale about the coronavirus is the panic. That's what's off the scale. I mean, again, not to make light of it, but it's infected less people than the common flu, and has killed less people than the common flu. And not to make light of the corona, not to make light of it, but there's no question that the way it's just killing us and killing the economy is all from our panic. And maybe Hashem is sending us this lesson. Says, we say to Hashem, look, the Yetzirah, he's tripping us up. What do you want from us? Well, why are you so scared of him? They're being so scared of him and allowing him, you panic at the minute he just tempts you a little bit. That's where his power comes from. It's your fault. It's your fault. And I think that's one of the things we can learn from the coronavirus. Right? And as I'll tell you, another thing that we can learn from the coronavirus, which directly leads into a classic story that happened between my Rosh Yaakov Weinberg and his brother of Noah Weinberg, the Rosh Torah, and also leads right in to the cliffhanger that we're coming to resolve in today's session. The story goes like this. The story I heard in many forms from Rav Noah Weinberg is that he was like a solid 8 years or so younger than his brother, 6 to 8 years, something like that. Between 6 and 8 years younger, some along those lines. So he was not even he was maybe 12 when the story happened. And Rav Yaakov was something like 18 or more, thereabouts, right? So as Reb Noach used to tell the story, we woke up one morning and said, "What am I knocking myself out for?" He was working hard at yeshiva. What am I? If I would have been born Chinese, I would have been a Chinaman. I would have been born Christian. I would have been Christian. I would have been born Muslim. I would have been Muslim. How do we know we're right? What's the point? Right? So he went to his older brother, Yaakov Weinberg, and said, "Look, how do we know we're right?" He says, "What do you mean?" "Well, what word did you not understand? How do we know we're right?" "Explain yourself." "Which words do you not understand?" How do we know we're right? Who says we're right? I don't understand the question. What's not to understand about it? How do we know we're right? Finally, Rav said, us or who? Right? Meaning you're not really asking a question, you're just going into doubt, which is Amalek also suffix. What's so dangerous about the coronavirus is that we don't know. It's a new virus, right? It belongs to a family that we know, the coronavirus is, but this one, COVID-19, we don't know, and that's what's fueling the panic, right? Not knowing is not a legitimate question. The legitimate question is, that's what Rabbi Yaakov was pointing in this case. Who do you think is right? The Christians? Who do you think might be right? The Muslims? You're just saying generally, how do we know right? That's doubt for doubt's sake. Us or whom? Ask a solid question. Us or what is the alternative? You're just being doubting for doubting's sake. Doubting for doubting's sake can never be satisfied, never placated. Right? Ask a real question. Is it us or the Christians? Which one is right? Is it us or the Muslims? Which one is right? And as the story goes on, that this Noah Weinberg took a few days to think about it, and said, how do we know evolution is false? Okay, now you're asking a solid question, and I'll give you a solid answer. And he recommended some reading for him. Right? And then that's the point. Doubt for doubt's sake. That's called paranoia. There is such thing as being in doubt, but there's like a legitimate doubt. Is it like this or is it like that? And that could be legitimate. Even that is not always legitimate, as we explained once in a forum. That yesh asking Hayesh Hashem B'Kibeinu is it this or that is not a legitimate question. That was their mistake. Right? But if there is legitimate doubt, it is that type of doubt. And by the way, in halacha also, right? Not just not knowing. It's not just not knowing. It's not called a real doubt. If you have two doubts lined up, yeah, you have a sveka. A double doubt, you could now be lenient, even by a suffix doraisa if it's two doubts. Right? So how about this? Right? I don't know what the halacha is over here. Doubt number one. Right? Let's back up. Doubt number one, I don't know the reality of the situation. It's something which I've never encountered before. One doubt. Doubt number two, if I would know the reality, I wouldn't know the halacha anyway. Doubt number two, is that a good sveka? And now is not a good sveka. You don't even have one suffix. It's not even a suffix. A suffix means you have two solid sides to the issue. It's either this or that. Just being totally ignorant is not called the doubt. To make it a suffix, the rabbanan lekula, or to construct a sveka. It's not a legitimate doubt. Doubt is always bad. But Amalek gives us illegitimate doubts that we call paranoia. And that's another problem with the COVID-19. But getting back to this story that happened with Yaakov Noah Weinberg, that also gets into what the Yud Gimel Ikarim are about. And with this, let us just basically recap. Let us recap what we did yesterday. And so we were, asking ourselves, it's a major question in Jewish philosophy, like what did the Rambam mean by these 13 Ikarim? On the one hand, it's not an exhaustive list of everything you have to believe, because you have to believe every word of the Torah is true. And on the other hand, if you want looking for basics, that like a really, really essential structure is what Rav Yosef Albo in Sefer says. You want a real basic structure that constitutes religion, that there is a God, that he gave a law, and that there's reward and punishment. And we explained Albo's position yesterday at great length, and to Albo, the idea of Ikarim is a very, very, very it's a philosophical idea. Like the definite have religion implies three things: that there's a God, that he gave a law, and that it makes a difference. Right? That's reward and punishment. Right? And it's a very philosophical thing. Philosophical. I mean, it's a point in philosophy. You can't have religion if you don't have one of those three elements. It's like saying having a circle without a curvy line, without curvy lines. A circle without curves. Right. So religion, but you don't believe in God. Religion, but God didn't give a law. Religion, but it makes it. It's like saying a circle without curve. Yeah, it's a nonsensical thing. Right. But of course, the what you're obligated to believe is whatever religion commands you to believe in. Right. And if you violate any of those beliefs, you're a heretic. Right? The difference between Ikarim and the other points of belief is that without those basic beliefs, you don't even have a religion. Right? Right? Okay, and that's Alba's approach. Right? But the Ram's clearly not that approach because yeah, gives 13 details. Them are like seemingly detailed beliefs. Where's the Ram coming from? Right? As we said yesterday, it's nishtahin, nishtaher. Right? It's neither seemingly, it's neither an essential system, and seemingly nor is it the exhaustive, detailed list of what you have to believe in, which is basically that every word of Torah is true. Everything Torah teaches is true. All right. So what are the Ikram according to Rambam? So we said the amazing thing that the Rambam says, and we said it so quickly. We should really recap it and analyze it even before we unpack its full depth, see what ikrim are according to the Rambam. The Rambam said an amazing thing. When a person believes in these 13, then, only then, it's called that he has entered Klal Yisrael, entered the assembly of Israel. Now he's your fellow Jew, and all the mitzvahs be'adam l'chavero instantly applied. Right? And that's benefit number one, that, now he's your brother. Because by the Torah, by all its mitzvahs, all the mitzvahs between man and his fellow Jew, right? The Torah always drops in like an extra word, achicha, your brother, amisecha, your friend or your neighbor, reacha. And by all of them, Chazal pretty much make the same drasha. He has to be your brother in mitzvahs. He has to be your companion in mitzvahs, right? Your neighbor in mitzvahs, as a word. That extra word, is that, it's not enough that he has Jewish DNA. That doesn't make your fellow Jew. Sadly, our DNA is floating around in all the nations. There was assimilation, there were rapes. God forbid, yeah, sadly, right? But Judaism, it's not an issue of DNA. It's an issue of the Torah ruling that a person's Jewish. And DNA could be a criterion, right? It's the Torah. It's about the Torah. We'll talk more about this in a few minutes. But the point is like this, getting just from a pure halachic Jewish law point of view, right? The Rambam actually has solved a practical problem for us. And then we have to get into the philosophical depth of it. Chazal always understood that the Torah is dropping these extra words of your neighbor, your companion, your brother, to say my bid, he has to be oisem my sa'amcha, he has to, nasi ba'amcha, right? He has to be acting like a member of the Jewish nation, right? He should not be a deviant. He should be keeping mitzvahs, but how many mitzvahs do you have to keep? Everyone, uh, screws up here and there, only by accident, and let alone, aside from certainly by accident, right? Shogeg. But even B'mezid, the temptation was just too great. So who is your fellow Jew in mitzvahs? So Rambam says, interesting. He's really, solving that very great, simple, practical question. Right, without getting overly, further. It's a simple, practical question. How many mitzvahs does your fellow Jew have to keep to be called your fellow Jew? So Ram says, I'll tell you what it is. It's just the belief in these 13 principles. It's amazing. So first of all, let's like take note of that. Let's take note of that. So if you have a friend that Jewish friend, relative that is not a perfect keeper of halacha, but he believes Torah is true. If you ask him about any of these 13, I'll tell you he believes in it. What can he do? He's lazy. What can he do? He's, you know, he's still your fellow Jew for all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Which also include, by the way, your arvus, you're responsible for it. So his sin could be your sin if you are in a situation where you could, set him right. But let's talk about the more positive aspects. Since there's arvus, let's say you made kiddush already. He didn't make kiddush, and he won't make his own kiddush for whatever reason. You could make kiddush for him, even though you were Yotze, because Kol Yisrael, ravens, we're responsible for each other. And he's in that category if he believes in the 13 Ikarim. If he doesn't have the 13 Ikarim, he's not in that category. So I don't have to return his lost object, and all the other laws of kindness between me and my fellow don't apply, legally. It may be good advice to draw him close, right? And try to influence him, right? But if he is a active denier, and we'll discuss this a little bit further on in this session, we'll just leave it simple, call it an active denier, right? Is a rejecter of any of the 13 principles. He's out of the game, but also this has halachic, implications aside from the fact that none of my special responsibilities towards my fellow Jew apply to him. But it also means he's out of arvus, right? I want to make kiddush because he's not going to make kiddush. He ain't making kiddush. I make kiddush. So I'll go to his house. I'll make kiddush for him. I can't. I'm not responsible for him. He's out of the network. Right? Yeah. And it's amazing. We have to understand why. So the Rambam over here is, on the one hand, solving a great deal of halachic quandary for us, because we got these laws from Chazal that we may have some serious questions to how to apply them. And the Rambam said his criteria. If he believes in these 13, and the reason why he's not keeping other mitzvahs, even if it's on purpose, but it's out of temptation, right? Not out of rejection. Rejection is, if a person doesn't keep mitzvahs out of spite, he doesn't really believe in God, right? What's he trying to do? He thinks he can hurt God. He thinks there is no God. You understand? Not keeping mitzvahs out of spite, means heresy. Unless we're talking about that he's, a little bit, he has uncontrollable anger against God, so that would fit into the category of uncontrollable passion. You understand the difference? He's, just like he has uncontrollable temptation. That's why he commits adultery, which is not to be excused. It's still called on purpose. If he didn't have a gun to his head, so it's still called on purpose, and he pays the penalty, full penalty. But it's understandable that he could still believe in God. He just couldn't control himself. He could believe that the Torah is true. So the same thing could be if a person has uncontrollable rage against God because of some trauma he had from some crackpot Rebbe or bad parenting, or went through the Holocaust. I mean, God forbid. You understand that type of anger and spite is really uncontrollable passion. That is like temptation, right? Right. He is not philosophically. He's not being philosophically spiteful. Right. Matter of fact, all that anger actually implies that he does believe in God. Right, and he does believe in the Torah. And that's why, from his psychological hang-up, he wants to try to, hurt God, as it were, because he knows there's a God, and he knows that God commanded this, and he knows he'll suffer for it. So just the opposite. So again, I have to be exactly there's spite and there's spite. There's spite that a person has uncontrollable anger because of an experience that he went through, and therefore nebuch, he's damaged. And that is the same like uncontrollable temptation, which the Rambam would say, if you believe in the 13 Ikarim, you're still a member of the Jewish people, and you're still going to Olam Haba. And you just have to, be judged whatever you did wrong. There is no free ride. Right? The only free ride is when you have a gun to your head. Right? So listen. So yeah, it was your choice. It was obviously your choosing was heavily weighted to one side, but then it was still your choice. Anything short of having a gun to your head or someone forcibly moving your limbs for you, again, anything short of those two situations is called your choice that you have to pay for, even if there's a tremendous weight towards one side. So I just want to clarify this because this is something which is not well clarified in the poskim, probably because they didn't encounter it as much as we do post the Holocaust. Be it in survivors, be it in, this generation where kids have a lot of anger and it's not because they're rebelling spitefully out of, a cool calculated way, rebelling, trying to destroy. Because of bad parenting and traumas and, right, and a lot of stuff. Right. So that type of spite, we call it anger, but that is to be equated with uncontrollable passion. It is not to be equated with what Chazal and the poskim call lahach, spite. That means in a cool, calculated way, right? He is coming to make a statement against the Torah. Right? Cool, calculated way to rebel against God. Right? So that's what the Rambam says, that if he did whatever he could on purpose, but was out of uncontrollable passions, which I'm saying parenthetically could include anger and spite as we have been seeing it in the past 70 years. It's not the same anger and spite that the post can talk about. There was cool, calculated, rebellion, just for rebellion's sake. Okay? But Ram says, as long as it's out of an uncontrollable passion, which could be a type of anger also, you still have your portion of the world to come, right? God's not going to take it away from you. He'll just punish you and give you a tongue for you did wrong, but you will not lose your portion in the world to come, and you will not lose your standing as being our fellow Jew. Amazing, right? And whereas a person could be, because he's a very traditional type of guy, right? Very traditional type of guy, right? It's into tradition and heritage and ethnicity and all that stuff, right? So he'll keep halacha perfectly, but he doesn't believe in God. He thinks the Torah is just a ethnicity. That guy is not part of the Jewish people. That guy has no portion in the world to come. But he's doing good. Okay, so that is an important point that we don't actually discuss in the Sefer openly, but since we're allowing ourselves to digress and go on tangents because we're doing this from quarantine in a certain state of emergency, it should be pointed out that God rewards everybody for any good deed done. Absolutely. Any good deed done gets reward. And speaking of dogs before, right? And Pesach is coming up. Look at that. So no one even barked at the Jewish people. No, I guess the dogs didn't even bark when the Jews left. Out of as it were awe and respect for the great thing that was happening. And that's why Chazal say, by no coincidence, that the Torah recommends that if you have non-kosher meat that you can't eat, nevela, which you're allowed to get benefit from nevela. Nevela, a carcass that was not properly, did not undergo shechita, or treifa that underwent shechita, but its internal organs were found to be damaged, so it's not fit for consumption. You're allowed to have pleasure, throw it to the dogs. The Torah gave a recommendation. Oh, what do I need the Torah's recommendation for? I'll do what I want. No, the Torah recommended giving it to the dogs, because and HaKoshu mekapech schar kol beri. HaKoshu does not forego and does not neglect to give every creature reward for any good thing done. Okay, so even a dog, the whole species was rewarded with a recommendation. Our meat that we can't eat, we have to throw to them. I do have to point out, for dog owners, since it's your dog, right? Since it's your dog and you are financially responsible for it. So you could give it Nevel and Trev because these non-kosher things are permitted, to derive benefit from you if you can't eat it. Okay, but let's say accidentally something became treif, non-kosher, because of mixing milk and meat together in a way that they were cooked together with the biblical prohibition of meat and milk. That's real meat, as in it's either cow meat or goat meat or sheep meat, together with the milk of any one of those three species. Cow milk, sheep milk, or goat milk cooked together, that combination is osur b'hana. It's prohibited to derive any benefit from it whatsoever. So you can't give it to your own dog. Presumably, you could throw it in the street and the stray dogs can eat it. I think that's probably because you don't get any pleasure. You're not the one who has to feed them. They're not your problem. So you're not saving any money by throwing it out in the street where the stray dogs can have it. So ask your local Orthodox rabbi, but I would be prepared to permit to throw your basar b'chalav, mixture that is prohibited to get any pleasure from out in the street for the strays. I would permit that because you don't save money by that because those strays are not your financial responsibility to feed. But your own dog, you save money. You don't have to buy dog food because you fed it. Yeah. So can't give it to your own dog if it's your dog that you must feed, because that's called getting benefit from it, saving you money. Right? Now the same is true by the way, chametz on Pesach. Especially another message my fellow dog owners out there. All right, Pesach is coming, so there's two problems now. Chametz is even prohibited to own. Right? Right, so you can't even buy dog food. You cannot be in possession of regular dog food that generally has grains in it, from the 5 grains that make chametz, wheat, barley, oats, rye, and spelt. Most dog foods have them. You cannot even be in possession of it. And that's problem number one. And problem number two is, well, you know, uh, you know, you know, problem number two, equally a problem, is you give that chametz to your dog. Chametz on Pesach during the 8 days of Pesach itself is prohibited to get any pleasure from, just like milk cooked and meat cooked together. And if it's your dog, you're saving money. Right? If it's your dog, you're saving money. So you cannot feed it chametz. It's called getting pleasure from chametz. Right? But it seems to me, I think it's obvious, if you give your dog, and it's what many religious people do, they just give their dog to a dog sitter for 8 days, a non-Jewish dog sitter, like a Houndstown, right? And if they feed the dog chametz or they feed it basar, that's their problem. You didn't ask them to do it, right? You paid them top dollar, and they could have easily fed it just pure meat. It was their choice. You didn't save any money by it, but you paid them anyway, right? You would get into problem if you actually instructed them to give it. That might be a problem, but that's not the case. You don't know what they feed them. I hope it's good for them. Right. So okay, just make Okay. So, but getting back to our point, I see some viewers actually logged off. They're not liking these things. Really not liking. I'm sorry, but whatever. As I alluded to before, we're dealing with coronavirus here in the house. Not that I am, not that we are actively infected, as far as we know, but it's a stressful situation being locked up. So you have to forgive my tangents, right? But I'll get back to the point that right, you don't necessarily deserve olam haba for a good deed done. Why a good deed that cost a certain amount of time, took a certain quantifiable amount of effort, right? Right, and maybe cost you, however it cost you a certain amount. That could easily be paid off in this world, like in lulav. shaking of the brain of the four species. Why do you have to get Olam Haba for that? And we're going to talk more about this in depth in another session or two, right? We're going to come back to this, right? Why do you deserve Olam Haba for shaking a lulav? It took you 5 minutes, especially especially if you're one of those guys that doesn't even buy your own. You took it from someone, a matana minas la'achzir, you used the rabbi's lulav and esrog. So it didn't even cost you money. And it took you a minute. Why do you deserve it? Eternal reward. Now, the truth is, why mitzvahs are even worth eternal reward, we'll discuss, like I said, not today. We will get to it, and we actually deal with it in the book. I just want to explain that the non-believing Jew, God forbid, and we'd like to believe that there's very few Jews like that. There might be a lot of Jews who are unaware of the 13, right? But we certainly, think that there'd be very, very few Jews, if any, that would actively, be rejecting of and be knowledgeable of them and yet reject them. We'd like to believe there's very few Jews like that in the world, if at all. Right? So, but as let's say we do, we have a guy who does not, Mashiach, he thinks is a Christian idea. I mean, God forbid, right? He's decided Mashiach is not real. I mean, God forbid, right? But he's a very, really came from a very traditional background, and he's really big into Jewish ethnicity, Jewish pride. So he only eats kosher, and he when sukkah comes, he builds a sukkah and he takes the four species. And he's rich enough to, buy the best, Right? So of course he'll get rewarded for whatever he did. He won't get Olam Haba. Right? These things could be, fair compensation could be granted in this world. The fact that your mitzvahs are worth Olam Haba, that they earn a portion of the world to come, that's you have to be in the network for your mitzvahs to reach that high, right? And to be worth Olam Haba. He's not in the network. So getting back to the point that we've been saying at great length, and sadly boring some of the people who are tuning in and out. Getting back to the point, so the Rambam says, if you believe in these 13 ideas, you're in. You're in the Jewish people, and all the mitzvahs towards a fellow Jew immediately apply to you, right? And one of the big privileges is guaranteed portion of the world to come. So long as whatever you did wrong, if you did it on purpose, you just did it out of uncontrollable passion, right? That's the reason you did it on purpose, because you just couldn't control your passion, right? You'll get punished what you did wrong, but you will still have a portion of the world to come. Amazing. Whereas in reverse, if you do not believe in any, now as we're going to establish, based on the teachings of my Rosh Hashiva, right? If you actively reject any one of these 13, right, you're not called my fellow Jew, right? Even though you do a lot of mitzvahs that are similar to mine, because you're really into the ethnicity of it, right? You don't believe in God, right? But you're into the ethnicity, right? So you're not my fellow Jew, right? If you don't believe in God, you're not my fellow Jew. If you don't believe in Mashiach or in the resurrection of the dead or any one of these 13, number one. So I don't have any of the responsibilities of my fellow Jew toward you. But what's worse for you, right? What's worse for you is, of course, God rewards everybody. God even rewards a dog that doesn't bark at the Jewish people. We don't get Olam Haba for you. What you would agree is ample compensation in this world. Right? Olam Haba is only for the ones in the network. Right? So now I'll tell you, even before we, let's just get again into the, the amazing, halachic, Jewish law difference that this makes. Right? If a person comes to you and says, "I'll give you 1 hour of my time to teach me Torah," that's it, right? Whether he says it in such a, demanding way, 1 hour and that's it, and I'm not coming back. No promises to ever come back and learn ever again. Whether it's that extreme situation or even a less extreme situation. So listen, I'm starting out. Teach me some Torah. I'm starting out. I don't know anything. In either scenario, particularly in the first, the guy says, you got 1 hour to teach me Torah. All right? Not giving you any time ever again after that. In either situation, what do you teach? What do you start from? Or especially if a guy gave you a challenge, give you 1 hour of my time. You teach him these 13 Ikarim. And this is a psak halacha from the Abarbanel, which Marshiv, of course, agreed with, but you don't even, it's obvious. Because listen, if you just start talking to him about Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, that's all nice, right? But since there's no guarantee he's coming back again, now that who wants to, aside from no guarantee he's ever coming back again, right? You want to get him into the fold and save his soul and have it immediately. You say, Judaism 101 is these 13 principles. That's Judaism 101, right? That's the first thing you teach someone, and especially if he says he's only giving you 1 hour of his time. So for sure, that's what you teach him. Say, because if you taught him the 13 Ikarim and he accepted them, you saved him. You made him a full member of the brotherhood, the Jewish brotherhood, right? You made him a full member, right? And you got him a guaranteed portion of the world to come. You spoke to him a little bit about this, a little bit of that. You spoke to him about, I don't want to get into what some of these kid organizations do because they think it's catchy. I don't know. But if that's all he walks away with, you know, you haven't saved him. You haven't saved him. So it's amazing what these 13 Ikarim are, right? You could save a person's, save a person, you know, on so many levels. You just teach him these 13 Ikarim. He's your fellow Jew, which has its privileges of a guaranteed portion. Of course, you get paid for whatever you did wrong, but a guaranteed portion. No? So, of course, is there any doubt? That's the first thing you teach them. And all this shows that, the 13 Ikarim, they are a philosophical system. There are certain philosophical principles, but it's not about looking for an essential system like Albo was looking for. Right? It's something else. It's something very deep, and for generations and generations. Like people like the Abarbanel and later people, they were like grinding at it. What exactly are they and why they make this huge differences that the Rambam lays out until my Rosh Shiva, said something not to the exclusion of what the earlier generations posited, but he's one who said it shortest and sharpest. And if I dare say, I was thinking about this today, and it never ceases to send a shudder down my spine, the short and sharp definition that my Rosh Yaakov Weinberg said. And I say it was worth it for his neshama to come down from heaven and be born in this world just for this one truth that he revealed. The definition of the Rambam's 13 Ikarim is these are the ideas that you have to be aware of in order to accept the Torah as an absolute truth. It's brilliant. And our whole presentation is going to show how these 13 Ikarim, 13 ideas, interlock with each other and create a complete circuit of absoluteness. Have it from every possible angle that God is an absolute being and the Torah that he gave us is an absolute truth, and the difference that it makes is an absolute difference. And now, even before we begin to just give a cursory view of how these 13 Ikarim do it, and just a cursory view of how they interlock, and then we'll go through them in detail. But even before that, this definition alone demystifies the whole thing. You understand? This is why this is called entry into the Jewish people. We're the nation of the Torah. In the words of HaGaon, Ein Ameinu Uma Ela B'Torah. So what made our nation a nation is our Torah. And this is so evident from the Jewish sociological wonder. Right? That it's the Torah that makes us a nation, not our DNA. I always say I would not be shocked if Saddam Hussein is a closer DNA match to Avraham Avinu than I am. It wouldn't shock me. There's been a lot of, let's even there's been a lot of assimilation in a good way. There's been a lot of converts that have come into the fold that have diluted the original Jewish DNA, and so maybe Avraham Avinu from Mesopotamia. He was from Iraq, right? So maybe Saddam Hussein is a closer DNA match to him than I am, an Ashkenazic Jew, right? I'm not saying he is. I'm saying it wouldn't shock, right? But this is true. Everyone knows halacha, right? No, a a Jewish girl married a guy who had a daughter, who married a guy, 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 who had a daughter, who married a guy. 50 generations. That girl, if it's the way I said it, it's mother after mother after mother, that girl will look like a million chicks, right? Look, her Jewish blood will be totally diluted, right? She's Jewish, right? Because the Torah says so. As opposed to, 50 generations of Jew marrying Jew, right? And then, after 50 whole generations of full Jewish features, this guy marries a shiksa, right? All the kids from that shiksa are going to look very, very Jewish, right? They're going to look very, very Jewish. And that shiksa herself could have had a Jewish father, who had a Jewish father, who had a Jewish father, right? So those kids will look very Jewish, a lot of Jewish features, but they're not Jewish. So it's got nothing to do with DNA, right? It's because it's got to do with the Torah. Proclaim this one Jewish and proclaim that one not Jewish. The other one has, quantitatively speaking, much more Jewish DNA, much more Jewish features, right? But I want to get back to how this is not just abstractly true. This is so true, tangibly true, right? Look at us. Look at us. 2,000 years in exile, right? Developing so different from each other in different places in the world. Ashkenaz, Sfard, Hasidim, Misnagdim, that live, originally until very, very recently, just until very recently, totally scattered from each other. That's, so the DNA was a little bit different. The Sephardic variation versus the Ashkenaz variation lived in different communities scattered around the globe. I'm just saying it's only recently that a lot of Jews gathered together in America and in Israel, particularly in Israel. It's something which only happened very recently, for 2,000s of years. Now that we just dealt with this in Purim, that was our situation. Am echad mefuzar u'meforad, one nation that's separated and scattered. Right? And yet it's one nation. We feel this tremendous brotherhood for each other, even though we don't know each other, right? We believe there's a common ancestry. We'll go figure it out. If it's me and some Sephardic Jew, no, no. We feel this tremendous brotherhood for each other. Why? We're not living on the same land mass. We don't even have the same culture. We're culturally divided, even because we have one Torah. One Torah. That was by the famous Bayless trial in Russia. They put Judaism itself on trial and said, why does it say in the Talmud that we are called Adam and the nations are not called Adam? But some humans. So Mayor Shapira, who was from Lublin, Poland, wrote in to the Russian government and said, listen, I'll tell you what it means. We're called Adam, as in one man, Adam. You are many people, meaning we feel a brotherhood for each other that every Jew is my own flesh and blood. And here's the proof. I never met Bayless, right? And I don't live in Russia. I live in Poland. And I'm writing it, and his problem is my problem. Super unity that overcomes geographical and cultural separations from the power of the Torah. And it's interesting. That's what it says by the giving of Torah. By Yichan Chazal, they singular, Israel, singular, camped opposite the mountain. So Rashi says singular, ki shechad b'levecha, like one person with one heart. The Jewish unity is rooted in is a divine unity, and it's rooted in the fact that we are all in the brotherhood of the Torah. Right? In the words like Rav HaGaon, "Ein ameinu uma over Torah." So, and therefore, with these 13 principles, we're able to. You have to be aware of these 13 ideas, in particular, because these 13 ideas give you a awareness that enable you to accept God and His Torah and the difference that Torah makes as absolute. That's why it's entry into the Jewish people. That's called to accept Torah and to be in the network, the national network of the Torah, right? Which once you're in that network, you also have a guaranteed portion of the world to come. And when you're in that network, your mitzvahs are worth olam haba. Outside of the network, your mitzvahs don't earn olam haba. And get reward, everything good gets rewarded, right? Why should you get eternal reward for a finite action? Well, if you're in that Torah network, then your mitzvahs are worth olam haba. Right? But to be in the network is to be accepting of the Torah as an absolute truth. And these 13 ideas give you that orientation to realize that Torah is an absolute truth. Right? And interesting enough, these 13 could be divided up into Albo's 3 very, very general categories. The first 5 have to do with God. And we're going to demonstrate that you need to be aware of all those 5 details in order to understand that God is an absolute being. Right? And then the next 4 relate to Torah. And it's just not enough to say Torah from heaven, but there's a few other details. They all relate to Torah. And then you know that God gave you an absolute Torah, the Torah of absolute truth. And the last 4 deal with, the difference that Torah makes. Like there will be olam haba for, reward and punishment. Right? That there will be destiny, going to be a Mashiach, there's going to be the resurrection of the dead. Teacher of Torah makes an absolute difference. The whole network of Torah, from the God who gave it to the difference that makes it, it's all absolute. And by no coincidence, it becomes 13, 1. And there's only one absolute. 13 is Gematria, but there's only one absolute. There's 13 details to be aware of. The Torah is the one and only truth. Absolute means one and only. They are synonyms. We've said a lot today, and we'll continue tomorrow on this point of explaining what absolute truth means. And yes, there could be a truth that's not an absolute truth. Torah is probably the one and only absolute truth that we have in this world. All right, and we're going to discuss that more tomorrow, but that's the basic point. And this is what my Rebbe, Yaakov Weinberg, revealed. 13 Ikarim are ideas that you need to be aware of in order to accept Torah as the absolute truth. And that acceptance, that's called to be really accepting of Torah, and therefore to be in the Torah network with your other Jews with a guaranteed portion. We'll stop here. Thank you very much, everybody. And I guess we should get used to this. For whenever I'm not promising to schedule another session tomorrow. But if I do, coronavirus time. Life is not normal. So, so forgive my tardiness. Circumstances beyond my control. It may happen again. But you know what? Subscribe to the channel. Just subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to this channel, and that way, when it really goes live, you get notification. Right? It's one of the benefits of subscription is not just the notification of the scheduling, but you get another notification when it actually goes live, and that's the best. Okay? Thank you very much, everybody. Everyone keep safe and healthy. May we only hear Basura, so it's only hear good news.